Stories shape how we see the world. Voice of Witness is an award-winning oral history nonprofit harnessing the transformative power of storytelling. We work with individuals and communities impacted by injustice, helping them document their lived experiences through oral history, telling their own stories in their own words. In an era of reductive sound bites, we need this kind of nuanced grassroots storytelling to create a more just future. Visit voiceofwitness.org/learn to get involved, check out our workshops, and download tools to support your own project. Join us in building a more connected world, one story at a time.
Hi, I'm Rashmi Sajani, founder of Girls Who Code. Look, I'd consider myself a pretty successful adult woman. I've written books, founded 2 successful nonprofits, and I'm raising 2 incredible kids. But here's the thing. I still wake up wondering, is this it? And if the best years are yet to come, when's that going to start? Join me on My So-Called Midlife, my new podcast with Lemonada Media, where we're building a playbook for navigating midlife, one episode at a time. Each week, I'll chat with extraordinary guests who've transformed their midlife crisis into opportunities for growth and newfound purpose. At some point, we all ask ourselves, is there more to life? I'm here to discover how to thrive in my second act, right alongside you. My So-Called Midlife is out now, wherever you get your podcasts.
Lemonada.
Hello and welcome to Good Things. I'm Travon and thank you for joining us for part 2 of our 4-part series with the Coalition to Advance Public Safety, or CAPS. Now, CAPS is a collective working to expand and strengthen the community violence intervention ecosystem by providing resources, technical support, and a sustainable infrastructure to intervention programs in the cities and communities most impacted by gun violence. Today, we'll be focusing on violence prevention in Newark, New Jersey. I'll be talking with Aqeela Sherrills, the co-founder and leader of Community-Based Public Safety Collective, or CBPS. CBPS is a relationship-based violence prevention and intervention model in which residents are employed and trained as credible, trusted public safety professionals who create safety in their own neighborhoods. Also joining me today is Shadee Dukes from New Direction. New Direction is a city-based violence prevention program which specializes in outreach, high-risk intervention, and sharing resources within Newark, New Jersey. Aqeela, Shadee, welcome to Good Things. I want to jump right in, and I want to start by saying, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time, and in particular because you guys are both examples of people who are closest to the problem, know best what's needed to keep their communities free from violence, right? You guys have an understanding that a lot of people don't have. And so I want to start by asking you guys, or having you guys tell me, why you got into this line of work and how you got into this line of work. Whoever wants to jump in first, feel free.
I'll go first, and just lay a little bit of groundwork. Aqeela Sherrills, the executive director of the Community-Based Public Safety Collective. I've been doing this work for a little over 30 years now. Grew up in the Jordantown housing projects in Watts. Participated in what many social justice activists call the longest running war in the history of this country, which is urban street gang wars. Lost many friends and family, including my son, to violence in the streets. And have been committed to developing complementary strategies to law enforcement or community-based solutions to address violence in neighborhoods as well. So much of what we do today was spearheaded by individuals like Hall of Fame football great Jim Brown and the Nation of Islam Minister Farrakhan with the Stop the Killing tour back in the 90s. And many of us, who started this work, because, today we call it community violence intervention, right? But then we called it gang intervention, because of the limited frame that folks had around it. And then also how we saw the problem of violence in communities, making it kind of specific to the youth gang culture, which wasn't absolutely true, right? But, it's been a phenomenal journey. Yeah.
No, guys, thank you for sharing that.
Right. And for myself, my beginning is very similar to, Aqeela's, and particularly like losing my brother back in 2014. And we actually started out doing like community work on a small scale just inside our neighborhood, just because of our conditions and our circumstances. I was in the streets going through things. I was a victim of gun violence, and then targeted by the system, and ended up going to jail for possession of a gun, and my brother went to jail with me. And then we came home and just tried to change our circumstances in our community. And then shortly after that, my brother was killed. He was gunned down. And maybe about a year or so after that, like, I continued to do the work that me and my brother started. And that's when I met Aqeela Sherrills with a Newark Community Street Team when they came to moved on Hawthorne Avenue. They moved in my neighborhood, and they embraced me and brought me in with open arms. And Aqeela started to teach me about the work, high risk intervention, and all these other things. So just coming in through that way, that was really like my real big introduction. So that's how I got my start inside this work, and just trying to continue it on.
You both have very deeply personal connections to this work and to the experience of gun violence. And I would like to just kind of talk about, is there something you guys wish that every young person or adult currently stuck in the cycle of violence knew about getting help?
Yes, sir. Well, I would say that I wish that everybody knew that it was a different alternative. Right? Like, retaliation isn't the only standard, that we have when something negative happened to us, right? I wish that we all knew that we can turn a positive out of a negative situation. And because so often, we haven't really seen firsthand or really, come to grips with understanding that that's even possible.
Right.
So we always think eye for eye, tooth for a tooth. And all realness, so to speak, it don't always have to be that way, because, we leave people, to get hurt by our actions, right? Because I know if I retaliate to every situation, that leaves my kids without a father, that leaves my nieces and nephews without no guidance to be raised by. So sometimes, we just always think, we got to match people's energy. And I just wish that we all knew that we can introduce other people's demons to heaven. Right? We don't have to go with them.
It's heavy.
And that's my biggest thing.
Wow.
Yep, man. I just echo what you said, brother. It's always darkest before dawn, and that where the wounds are is where the gift lie.
That's right.
And sometimes we have to sit hard and long in the anguish and the pain, and we have to look for the gift, for it to manifest, right? And so the thing that I would say to a lot of folks out there is that we can shift and change our circumstances, right? I know that when we look at, public safety, in our neighborhood, we live in a country where if you say public safety, people say police, right? Mm-hmm. And so much of our power around the idea of public safety has been taken, or we've advocated it, in a sense. And so public safety becomes a very abstract thing. If you want to stop over-policing in your neighborhood, you want to stop the excessive force issues, you want to stop, the next, Sonia Macy from happening, you got to make your neighborhood safe. And only, one of the models that came out of the peace treaty that we organized in Watts in 1992 was nobody can stop this war but us, right? And it speaks to what you started off with, Travon, that we work, through this idea that violence is a public health issue. And those who are closest in proximity have to be equipped with the skills, the tools, and the resources to do the intervention, the prevention, and the treatment. And you feel like you don't have a tremendous amount of education or skills in order to make it in corporate America, in order to, to be able to provide for your family. CVI, community violence intervention, is a new career path, for folks in neighborhoods who might not have a lot of skills, but have deep relationships. Because one of the things that we discovered in this work is that change moves at the speed of trust. And so, when you have deep relationships in neighborhoods with people, you have the ability to actually transcend and transform relationships. And the last thing I'll say on that is that In 2017, we did a study in Newark and discovered that 62% of the homicides in the city started out as interpersonal conflicts. 15, 20 years ago, if we had folks who were highly trained in conflict resolution, mediation, and de-escalation strategies, who could step in the gap, mediate these conflicts to peaceful resolves, we wouldn't see a lot of homicides that we have happen in the city. And so we're making up for lost time, because it's essentially an epidemic, at this point. Whereas the number one cause of death, for black males ages 14 to 25 is gun violence, right? And so this is our fight, family. So this is what I would say to our folks in the field.
No, I mean, that's a really, really insightful answer. And, I'm thinking about the fact that, like, your organization, CBPS, you go into communities to strengthen neighborhood leadership, and you guys are investing in people and organizations who have roots in these communities to help them, learn how to get more deeply involved and attuned with this work. And for people who may not be, familiar with the term, can you just explain community-based public safety for people?
Yes, sir. Community-based public safety, or community violence intervention, is a resident, led strategy in which resident credible messengers, ex-gang members, ex-convicts, ex-drug dealers, those who are closest in proximity to the circumference of violence that are happening in the neighborhood, leverage their relationship capital to intervene and mediate conflicts to peaceful resolve, right? So essentially, the function of law enforcement in our respective communities is to enforce laws, right? Not necessarily create safety. Safety is a very subjective thing. And crime stats says nothing about whether or not a person feels safe or not, right? And because of the historical relationship between community and law enforcement, this idea as police as this ubiquitous institution that's responsible for all safety in community is just a false narrative. It's impossible to have public safety without the public, right? And so CVI, or community-based public safety, hires and trains and compensates, because this work is not volunteer. It's very dangerous, in which people, leverage their relationship capital to mediate and prevent retaliatory violence. It's evidence-based. It's, supported by community anecdotally, and it is present in, hundreds of communities across the country.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more good things.
Interested in the power of first-person storytelling? The Voice of Witness book series documents the oral histories of people directly impacted by and fighting against injustice. Each collection supports historically excluded communities to tell their own stories in their own words. The books feature a diversity of voices, including those of refugees and immigrants, incarcerated people, communities displaced from public housing, farm workers, indigenous peoples, and more. These powerful stories highlight crucial issues and expose the impacts of harmful narratives and policies, laying the groundwork to build solidarity and movements for change. Voice of Witness books are read and used by thousands of educators, organizations, and advocates across the country each year. Visit voiceofwitness.org/read to learn more, access free resources, and get involved.
Hi, I'm Emily Deschanel.
And I'm Carla Gallo, and we're excited to tell you about Boneheads, our new Bones rewatch podcast.
I played Dr. Temperance Brennan.
And I played Daisy Wick, and we are going to watch from the very beginning.
We're going to watch the episodes. We're going to reminisce. We're going to laugh. We're going to cry. We're going to tell behind-the-scenes stories.
We're going to go on tangents.
A lot of tangents.
So whether you're a seasoned Bones fanatic or a newcomer looking to dip your toes in to the wild world of forensic anthropology, this show is for you.
Boneheads from Lemonada Media is out now wherever you get your podcasts.
Where do you guys, and you guys can both answer this, where do you guys think the police do fit into that equation, given that there's a separation between law enforcement and safety and people's understanding of law enforcement and safety, because a lot of people, if you ask them, they attribute safety to law enforcement. They think the police are there to keep you safe.
That's right.
And that's technically not what they're there for. And the Supreme Court has said so themselves. They are not there for your safety.
How I feel is just that it's community based, right? It's community led. Law enforcement, like we said, they there to uphold the law, right? They're not there. They're not social workers. You could check all the crime stats, but safety is a feeling, and they can't create the feeling of safety. And I think that their role is, I want to start with our role more so, but I believe our role is more so to create the safety, to create the feeling, to create, the community. And we do alleviate a lot of things and let law enforcement focus on the more serious crimes, right? The homicides and, other things of those natures where, law enforcement, it is a need, but they can't control the community. They don't lead the community, right? And that's why the community has to have credible messengers. Leaders that's within the community have to be trained. It's dozens of trainers out here to get our communities organized and trained so that we can police ourselves and so that the police won't have to, and they can focus on the more serious crime. So that's where I'm at.
And Travon, I wanted to just share that so for community violence intervention, like the collective, as you said, we help to stand up community violence intervention agencies, right, in neighborhoods to function as a complementary strategy to the policing efforts in the city. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about community violence intervention, you have to think about the business of it, right? Because there's, a staff that's hired, there's payroll, there's systems, there's all of those things that have to function, workforce development and everything, right? Data management, reporting on grants, all of these types of things. Then you have the direct service provision, which shows up as a high-risk intervention team that responds, that's on the police dispatch, that's responding to shooting and shooting hits, that's documenting interventions and mediations, right, and follow-ups. This is what's happening in neighborhoods with these type of agencies and individuals, right? There's victims advocates who are part of the CVI ecosystem. Right. There's victims advocates who are paraprofessionals, neighborhood residents who are trained as victims advocates. There's this whole thing around victims and survivors, right? Most Black and brown folks don't identify as victims. Victims has a negative connotation in community. And so we turn that thing on its head and we call people survivors because it's a point of entry for Black and brown folks to be able to really demand some of their rights, right? We're probably the smallest population, but lead in every single category of victims of crime, in the country. But, so victims advocates, community health workers who are embedded in hospitals that do hospital-based violence intervention, so there's trauma recovery centers. We have therapists, who are embedded in neighborhood, social workers who provide, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy or teach other therapeutic modalities. All of these systems kind of like work together in neighborhoods. And so like the Newark Community Street Team or New Direction are like kind of, I like to say traditional kind of community violence intervention agencies that have charismatic leaders who are credible messengers from the neighborhood, deep relationships that know all of the key players, and they leverage their relationship capital to mediate conflicts to peaceful resolve. Mm-hmm. But not only that, they rally all of the youth together. I mean, Shadee can talk about like kind of the great work, the podcast that they host, man, with the G's that come and give the great messages out to young folks to deter from violence. I mean, killing the game right now, Newark right now. And we consistently pray that these numbers remain this way. But right now we're at a 30% low, in the city from last year. You know what I'm saying? In terms of violence.
That's amazing.
And so, and we've had 7 consecutive years in a row of decreases of homicide, and overall violence. So New Direction is the future, of CVI, right, like kind of work in Newark.
Right. And the way I understand that you guys are very much in the trenches, intervening in high risk situations and preventing this violence. And so I want to actually pivot to ask you guys, and Shadee, you can start with this, help me understand what it is you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis when you're doing this. And just in terms of things I'm thinking about is, what does preventing things from escalating look like for you and things of that nature?
Right. So, honestly, on a day-to-day basis, we dealing with the city as a whole, from multiple different levels, but primarily from from the youth standpoint, being engaged in our youth, because we know that a high percentage of the crimes that happens inside the city of Newark is centered between the 14 to 30-year-old base. So New Direction, we specialize in targeting that 14 to 24-year-old base, the high-risk population in particular, whether it's youth that's already in contact with law enforcement or they having trouble in school with behavior problems, they fighting in school, getting kicked out of school. So, you know, on a day-to-day basis, when school is in, we at least 3 to 4 high schools a day. And we identify the high-risk population through their staff and through their principal. Because if they're there every day, they know the high-risk kids that need the most attention. Right. So we start from there, right? Instead of sitting here trying to talk to 300 kids a day, only thing we really need to do is talk to these 10 problematic or influential kids.
Right.
And we use that approach, right? Because it's about the quality, not the quantity, right? Mm-hmm. So we dealing with that on a day-to-day basis, building relationships. We go with our youth to court. Whenever they have court cases, we go with them to schools when they have to sit down with their principals. And then, you know, and the real, like the centerpiece of it really is the follow-ups, right? Not just being involved with them when they're quote unquote in trouble, right? Just following up with them. Even once we touch bases on the first time and we know who they are, we pull up in a neighborhood, in their prospective neighborhoods. Not just inside their schools. We go to their neighborhoods where they hang out at with their guys. Because we have the relationships within the communities because we are a part of, not that we come from it, but we still a part of it. I still live inside the city. We still inside the city every day. So we have a real high touch point with the youth. And then also we build relationship with every neighborhood. And then we, you know, incentivize through and I guess I could touch on that point because that's the importance of us having a relationship and the funding from CAPS, because CAPS pour into us and they build our infrastructure and help us build our infrastructure so that we can help stabilize these communities, right? Because now if we get in, you know, our 501c3 and we getting our feet on the ground and we learning how to build our infrastructure and we learning, you know, how to get our funding. So now we can pour more time into the communities and get them more resources because we have the relationships, right? So now you know, it's the each one teach one type of thing, but it's simple, but it's impactful. You know, just keeping our touch points up, and you know, we run a lot of community programs, and then we run a lot of partnerships, right? That's really another one of our main secrets is just partnerships because we can't do this work alone.
We're so fortunate for the strategic partnership that we have with CAPS, with the Coalition to Advance Public Safety, you know, the collective, the Health Alliance for Violence Intervention, National Institute of Criminal Justice Reform, and Cities United, with strategic funding from both Balmer and Balmer Group and Schusterman Foundation. You know, we're doing this 12-city initiative with the goal of reducing violence in those cities. But even bigger than that, it's to build the infrastructure of those community-based violence intervention agencies who are the core partners, you know, with city in terms of, you know, reducing, you know, violence, you know, amongst the people, right? And so, we've been able to move in each one of the cities that we're working in. So 12 cities total. Our first cohort of cities was Newark, Baton Rouge, Baltimore, and Indianapolis. And now we're just launching in cohort 2, LA, Atlanta, Milwaukee, and Oakland. But we were able to move about $500,000 to 4 community partners in each one of the cities that we're working in. New Direction being one of the grant recipients, and those dollars, you know, help them to, you know, to get their 501c3 set up a lot of their back office infrastructure, get insurances, become a vendor with the city, get workers' comp, like all of these things that you need to do in order to function as a business, and then partner with the Newark Community Street Team and was awarded a $200,000 grant, you know, essentially through the city, right? And so building infrastructure, learning how to manage these grants and do all of the reporting. It's a lot of work. But you know what? This is the future, of public safety, because peace has to be incentivized. And there are folks in the neighborhood who have, the relationships, they have, the know-how, and, they just need the support and the investment. And man, some of these neighborhoods in some cases, for 3 and 4 decades, like violence has spiked in certain cities across the country, literally for 3 and 4 decades. We can bring an end to that. Mm-hmm. Because it's solvable.
Right.
The data says that less than 1 to 2% of the population are committing 80 to 90% of the harm.
Oh, wow.
There's data we can identify, we can track, and we can provide, wraparound and support services to that population. We can intervene, we can mediate, and we can reduce violence like we've done in Newark, like we're doing in multiple cities across the country.
We need to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more good things in just a minute.
Want more from your favorite Lemonada Media podcasts while supporting the shows that help make life suck less? Subscribe to Lemonada Premium today. As a subscriber, you'll unlock exclusive bonus content like never-before-heard interviews, behind-the-scenes moments, bonus episodes, and so much more. It's easy to sign up no matter what podcast app you use. On Apple, you can just click the Lemonada logo in the Apple Podcast app and hit subscribe. For all other podcast apps, head to lemonada.supportingcast.fm to subscribe. That's lemonada.supportingcast.fm.
Want a sneak preview of hot new audiobooks? Then check out Your Next Listen, a new podcast from Lemonada Media and Simon & Schuster Audio. We've got everything: the hottest new thrillers, best-selling celebrity memoirs, and swoony romances. And these aren't tiny clips either. They're entire chapters you can listen to. Your Next Listen is out November 11th, wherever you get your podcasts.
You mentioned the street team, and I know you started the Newark Community Street Team, and Newark's been recognized for its public safety, and it's become a big beacon in the country for the violence reduction work that's taking place there. Can you talk more about the street team and just how it became an essential partner in reducing violence in the city?
Sure. Yes. So, I've known, Mayor Baraka for a little over 25 years, as activists, advocates, and organizers in the field. In 2004, I was instrumental in helping him to organize a peace treaty between the Crips and the Bloods in the city. Interestingly, the biggest Crip gang in the city of Newark and in the state of New Jersey is Grape Street, which is the neighborhood that I'm from, where we organized a peace treaty in Watts in 92. And so, Baraka and I and a group of the brothers, we've maintained a relationship for over a decade after that peace treaty was organized in 2004. And so in 2014, when Baraka became mayor, he tapped me to come and build out his community-based public safety strategy, the Newark Community Street Team. So the mayor launched the Newark Community Street Team. And then he charged me with building infrastructure, putting systems in place, and turning it over to the local folks. And so, I thought this task would take about 3 years. But 8 years later, I've been living in Newark for the past 7. And I tell you, the work has been phenomenal. With NCST, we started with a modest $350,000 grant. I want to give a big shout out to our partners at Victoria Foundation, Prudential Healthcare Foundation from New Jersey. At the mayor's request, they invested these dollars. We were able to hire 16 independent contractors, train them in conflict resolution, mediation, de-escalation strategies through PCITI with Dr. Aqeela Sherrills. And we deployed folks in the neighborhoods, in key hotspots. The South Ward was our targeted area with the goal of intervening and mediating conflicts for peaceful resolve. And it essentially was an experiment. But at the same time, we had skills, we had deep relationships, or what I like to call the 3 Ps lined up, the power, the paper, and the people, you know what I'm saying? So we had the 3 Ps lined up. And so we were able to get some traction. I designed a 3-pronged strategy, high risk intervention, assertive outreach, victims advocacy. This became our approach. And we developed a whole theory of change, around victimization. We believe that if you put survivors at the center of the strategy and provide wraparound support services, then you put yourself in a position to be able to reduce violence and crime. Very hard-won relationships. The mayor provided a lot of the political interference and tackling, because that was absolutely necessary. Because if you can imagine standing up a complementary strategy to policing, in a city that was actually going into a consent decree. But we were fortunate, man. We got, one of the best public safety directors that you can get, Newark's own, Anthony Ambrose, double A. I call him the great reformer. And then following up with Brian O'Hara, who is now the chief in Minneapolis. We had great law enforcement partners who wholeheartedly embraced the work and gave us an opportunity to meet with the brass and also to have trainings with their shooting team so that we could understand each other's standard operating procedures and protocols in the field. We now run one at both University Hospital and at Beth Israel. We launched the city's first non-law enforcement response to OD. So we have a team that is embedded with the EMS, that responds to overdose as well as they respond on their own. And I mean, it's been phenomenal work. And, you got to account for the trauma that people have ingested, as a part of living in these urban war zones, And so, yeah, it's important.
No, absolutely.
And I don't see the trauma as a liability, honestly. As I said, where the wounds are is where the gift lie. W.E.B. Du Bois said, He said it's our, that this is our collective wounding. He said it's our birthright. And so, yeah, I believe in wounded healers.
No, I mean that what you just described is remarkable, and it's what it takes, to save these communities, to save our communities. And so in thinking about that, Shadee, I want to talk about credible messengers and violence interrupters. And, I think about giving ex-gang members and offenders, a new direction, so to speak, and giving them the opportunity to step in and save their communities. And so I would like to ask you, what do you think it means to be a credible messenger, and how do they, in doing this work, feel equipped to intervene, and how do they put aside their own feelings and biases when it comes to doing the work, given the nature of where they might come to it from?
Yeah, right. It's two things. I want to say the first thing it's being a credible messenger is understanding that, the mission is before you as an individual, right? It's about the common goal that we all stand here for. And we all going to be tested, right? My biggest test came, when I was doing the work. I had, my cousin passed away. Well, he didn't pass away. He got murdered, right? And the same, the day of his funeral, right? I sat down on a podcast that Aqeela, talked about. I started doing a podcast, and I sat down with his son on a podcast, and I publicly, asked for the streets not to retaliate for my cousin's death, and had the conversation with his son on why we not asking for retaliation for his father's death. And that was a hard thing to do, to sit there and tell my 14-year-old, little cousin that we can't go out here and go, murder the guys who murdered his father when, that's the only thing that's on his mind. He want to hurt the guys who hurt his father. And had to, because that conversation wasn't for me as an individual. It was about what we all standing here for. It was about what I represent. It's about what we represent as a whole, because I don't just discredit myself. If, I go out and I endorse this act, I impact all the work that New Direction is doing, all the work that Aqeela is doing, all the work that the mayor is doing. Because what they're going to do is they're going to look to me and say, look, this is what they're producing. And just understanding that. And then, 3 months after that, with my cousin's brother, my other cousin, right, getting murdered the same exact way his brother did, right? So then, just having to double down on that and go in front of my people again, right? And then, understanding that everybody in our community and our culture don't understand what we pushing, right? They don't understand that language of peace. But if ain't nobody gonna be the sacrificial lamb and show them what it looked like, then we never gonna get there. All we're gonna do is, continue to complain about our circumstances. But it comes down to what are you willing to do about it? And for me, I'm willing to do everything about it because it's not about me. It's about the example that I'm showing my daughters, the example that I'm showing my son, the example that I'm showing these kids when I'm asking them to stop killing each other. Now, something happened to one of my family members, I'm ready to go kill the whole city too. So, you have to become that light. If not, everything that we're doing is fluff. And I believe that, we have to redefine what a credible messenger is, because to me, Aqeela is my credible messenger. He's somebody that I've seen from a credible neighborhood, with a credible background doing the work that he's doing now. And that introduced me into the work. I believe my mayor is the credible messenger because he's from where I'm from and he made it to become a mayor. So he's creditable, right? I believe you're a credible messenger because you look like me. You're from where we're from. You speak the language that we speak. You know what I'm saying? So you giving your platform credibility. I believe we have to, we can't just put credible messenger in a box of somebody who went to jail or got shot and came back home.
Yeah.
He is the credible messenger, but that is not what a credible messenger is, right? A credible messenger is somebody that we can identify with, go to a height that we never seen before. And now we know that it's possible, right? Like, Michael Jordan was a credible messenger. LeBron James is a credible messenger because we seeing them climb heights, coming from places that we come from. Oprah is a credible messenger. So I believe, it was introduced that way, but it's way bigger than what we reduced it to.
Right.
Can you guys talk about your relationship together? Because you mentioned how, Aqeela is a credible messenger for you and the work that you're doing. So talk a little bit about, I know CBPS funds New Direction and the work you guys are doing. And talk to me about, what makes this partnership work so well. And maybe, Aqeela, you can touch on, the conversations you guys might be having around data managing and public funding where you are helping New Direction, soar to even greater heights.
I had the fortune of meeting Shadee because we launched our organization like right in the heart of his neighborhood. And so, the gang culture is a check-in culture. You know what I'm saying, man? You can't just go nowhere and just show up nowhere. You know what I'm saying? You got to check in. And Shadee and the brothers in the neighborhood was gracious enough to allow us to continue to be there, especially once they heard the message. And then, him being intelligent and having the gift, he connected to the message after, working with NCST and seeing like, hey, I'm a natural at this. You know what I'm saying? He's always been a natural leader, in politics and moving things in the neighborhood, already doing stuff, in order to support the community. So one of the things that we were able to do was just kind of wrap some infrastructure around it. And so, I think that a lot of our relationship today it's like kind of like mentor, like kind of mentee. I learned just as much from him that I'm sure that he learns from me, and we lend each other's credibility to each other, right? So we'll go to LA and, because I'm well respected in Jordan Downs and I'm from Grape Street and, all that good stuff. I can have my folks like Shadee them come to the neighborhood and meet all of the key players and connect and then make the relationship on their own. And now they're there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
When issues and everything come up, they can go in and leverage their own relationships. You know what I'm saying? So it's like transferring relationships, like on the streets, right? And then we also do it in the boardroom as well. So, when the opportunity, came, Shadee launched, and Tut launched New Direction, and they're like, hey, we moving these pieces forward. I pulled them into the White House initiative. I had the fortune of running the White House Community Violence Intervention Collaborative. I pulled them in as an agency. They didn't have enough infrastructure at the time to be one of the partners at the table, but, they hung in there. And then, as a result, CAPS came about. We were able to move some dollars. They were able to pull together some more infrastructure, partner with NCST on the grant. And so, the rest is history.
And I say it's the same on my end right now, man, because it's been that way since day one, right? Like coming in with new direction, and we came in underneath NCST leadership. And, as I started off as, an outreach worker for NCST and doing high risk intervention, he was my credible messenger because I was able to buy that, I was able to get buy-in just because of who it was, right? And it's just an awesome thing, man, because we're able to bounce off each other. And that's my mentor, that's my big brother, right? And I lend on him because I'm new to this space and So I'm not new to doing the work, but I'm new to this end of the work. So it's great for me.
No, that's amazing. I mean, you guys have definitely done great work together, and I'm hoping that keeps up for a very long time. I want to ask you, Shadee. I mean, another non-traditional thing about your organization, that stood out to me is the opportunities you provide for people, like going to concerts and things of that nature. And in the past, you've chosen people based on their growth and improvement since joining New Direction. And what's been your favorite moment so far in doing things like this for the people who've entered into your organization?
Honestly, all of it is my favorite because I can't believe that, I am who I am today. So I just take it all in. I appreciate my good days and my bad days the same. Because just having the opportunity and just building the right trust with my people. Because Aqeela touched on it before. Like I've been a leader in my community. I've been a leader in my family, but the direction that I was leading them in wasn't the right direction. And, just having another opportunity and just having my people trust me. That's the biggest thing. When I'm out in the community and people approaching me and they know me from miles away and it's all for something positive, right? Or, even when, and, it's even to the place where people is traveling around, nationally now and running into other people who know me and having conversations about me, and it's all the same conversation. And I think like the biggest thing for me, like, is not the moment, but I think the biggest thing is just proving my brothers right, proving Aqeela right, proving the mayor Rajdi Baraka right, because I know if any, we always peak the thousands and just hoping that we could save just one. And I just always want them, to be able to look back at their younger brother and be like, that's how I won, right? Like, they might have said, regardless of what, we know that somebody got it. Because I was that young kid when Aqeela talked about in 2004, when the mayor brought him over and to the city of Newark and all the guys. I was the young kid inside that classroom that they was talking to, and I didn't get it back then. But you fast forward the clock now. Now I get it, and now I get to sit down with them. So for me, it helps me. It helps me stay focused because it's bigger than me.
Right.
Right. We got enough people that don't believe in us. We have enough people who don't believe in our podcast, our visions, our high risk intervention. You know what I'm saying? So when you have people that do believe in you and you got the opportunity to prove them right, that's everything to me, man.
That's an amazing answer. And Aqeela, I'll pivot to you and ask you, what are you most proud of as it pertains to CBPS, and what is your vision for the organization and the people that you're helping?
The thing that I'm most proud of is, the support that we actually can provide for practitioners in the field to make a good living and to be responsible for making their families and their community safe. I'm like, that's huge. You know what I'm saying? Like, as an agency, we write grants for cities, also for community-based organizations. So, $10, $15 million, we've been instrumental in helping to move to organizations and unlocking like kind of millions more, right? Through advocacy. So much of what I do is about ensuring that my son's death and the thousands of individuals who lost their lives unjustly, to ensure that their lives were not lost in vain. You know what I'm saying? So, geeking out on the work to save lives and to give the individuals like Shadee credit for their work, so that in the near future, as we're paying, like in the city of Newark, we invest, I think, about $228 million annually in policing. In the future, I'd love to see $5 to $10 million going to New Direction, to sustain, violence reduction and peaceful efforts in the West Ward. Like, those are the type of things that I'm hoping to see. And our police playing a much more strategic role, because I'm not down on cops. I mean, I'm a huge advocate and fan of good policing, but our law enforcement, system is broken, and it needs a lot of help it needs community violence intervention in order to balance it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, just touching on and connecting to this, personally, like I grew up in Compton. And so I have a lot of family members and friends who have fallen victim to gun violence and community violence, and both survived it and didn't. And so I think the work you guys are doing is more important than almost anything I can imagine. And so in thinking about that, just, as a final question to you guys, how do you think we can find more organizations like New Direction to fund and to support? And then how do we get people excited and involved in this work when it can be so taxing, it can be so difficult, and a lot of people feel like they don't even know where to begin?
Yeah, I would say just quickly, learning more about community violence intervention agencies, please reach out to us, the Community-Based Public Safety Collective, at our social media handles. We'd love to connect you with hundreds of community violence intervention agencies across the country that need your support, whether it be, time, talent, or treasure. You know what I'm saying? Whichever would suffice. And I think that, the more shows that we can do like this, Travon, media, hopefully one day we're going to have like kind of a CVI show like The Wire. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Absolutely.
That's going to get us to kind of the type of, visibility that the movement needs in order to get this next level of traction. But man, it's you, bro. It's Lemonada. So, thank you all so much for giving us a platform to tell our story.
That's right.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I mean, thank you guys so much, Aqeela Sherrills and Shadee Dukes, for taking the time to spend with us and talk about this stuff. And we will continue to spread the word and spread the message. And I'm grateful that you guys are doing this work. And I wish you guys all the many, many millions of dollars in investment and all the best and love and support to keep our community safe.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, man.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
A special thank you to the Coalition to Advance Public Safety for making today's conversation possible. To learn more about how they foster transformative CVI ecosystems and the individual organizations that work in this coalition, visit www.capsinitiative.org. That's www.capsinitiative.org. This series is produced by associate producer Donnie Matias. Our supervising producer is Jamila Zara Williams. Mixing and sound design by Noah Smith. Steve Nelson is our SVP of weekly content. Executive producers are Stephanie Whittles-Wax and Jessica Cordova-Kramer. And please help others find our show by leaving us a rating and leaving us a review. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Hi everyone, Gloria Riviera here, and we are back for another season of No One Is Coming to Save Us, a podcast about America's childcare crisis. This season, we're delving deep into 5 critical issues facing our country through the lens of childcare: poverty, mental health, housing, climate change, and the public school system. By exploring these connections, we aim to highlight that childcare is not an isolated issue, but one that influences all facets of American life. Season 4 of No One Is Coming to Save Us is out now wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you looking for ways to make your everyday life happier, healthier, more productive, and more creative? I'm Gretchen Rubin, the #1 best-selling author of The Happiness Project, bringing you fresh insights and practical solutions in the Happier with Gretchen Rubin podcast. My co-host and happiness guinea pig is my sister, Elizabeth Kraft.
That's me, Elizabeth Kraft, a TV writer and producer in Hollywood. Join us as we explore ideas and hacks about cultivating happiness and good habits.
Check out Happier with Gretchen Rubin from Lemonada Media.